Protests erupt around the country following the news that it seems that the Supreme Court is stuck with their decision to go and overturn Roe versus Wade. So we will talk just a bit about some of the protests that are going on with that and where we go with that. On other news, a New York Times reporter or writer, I'm not even sure who this woman is, I'm not gonna lie, is forced to delete her Twitter account after she says one of the most egregious and racist things that you could possibly say, and the left comes for her on top of that as well. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are back in the hot seat, as with all of this going on, now the renewed calls for ending the filibuster have come. Surprise, surprise, I know you're as shocked as I am about something like that. And, in case you were wondering what this may have been trying to cover up here, just at the end of this, or just at the beginning of this, Pfizer announced a major profit margin. Mostly due to vaccines that they were selling to the government. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Look, I know it's a lot to ask right now. I really do. And we're probably going to be on one topic for today. Let's be realistic. There are 45 tabs up on the top right now, and 35 of them have to do with, tangentially, the draft leak somewhere. But is it, and I know this is a lot to ask right now, but I've got to ask our society, our wonderful society that we are tasked to live in, you know, the social contract and everything. Can we just, you know, I'm holding up my end of the social contract. I'm paying the taxes even though I think that they're theft. I'm obeying the speed limit, mostly. Paying licensing fees, etc., etc. I feel like I'm holding up my end of the social contract here. Can we just have one day or maybe even a week that isn't politically historic? Because this shit is getting exhausting. And you guys have got to start seeing the same thing around here, seriously. Some of this shit is getting exhausting. The fact that every day, every single day is this historic moment in our life, in our society. And it's been going on for 5 years. It's been going on for longer than that, but it's been going on in effect for 5 years. So, yeah. Let's, just a little bit to catch our breath, catch up on our tabs, stuff like that. But we've got to get into it. We've got to get started. And before we get started, head on over and check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turnsofpagesproductions.com or tsp-prod.com will be your one-stop shop once we get started for all of your news and commentary needs. Once we are up and getting started, we will be carrying great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Porch Boys, plus our friend Britt, and a new upcoming show will be joining us as well. So come back out there. If you're a fan of any of these shows or any of these people, make sure you are checking out the start page for this here. We're going to start getting aggressive for this, I think, this month. I'm going to see if I can't land a spot on Daily Ignoramus for that. That would be fun. Somebody tweet at that Ignoramus guy and say, hey, have the founder for Turns of Pages on your show. Somebody tweet at him. Tell him that. Or anybody else that's out there that you know that's got a bigger audience. Hey, maybe I can wind up on Perez's show. I know you guys have been trying to get us to collaborate, and now that I have a permanent co-host, it's a little bit harder, but yeah, tweet at the people where you would think that our message would fall through, and that is our message, of course, of building a news site that is by the common man for the common man. But yeah, go definitely let those people know that that you're thinking about me, you're thinking about this program, and you're thinking about going and checking us out. And if you do want to help us out in a more direct way, we do have a Give, Send, Go out for that. That is givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101. We've got one donation in there, but our mission statement is there. We want to make sure that our friend Bobby Joe gets paid because we like Bobby Joe here. We're doing this, and this is our news site. We want to build news and give news from people who have had to budget, who have had to worry about new laws or new policies, and sometimes have to decide which bills get paid and which ones get ignored. People just like you. Not the rich people sitting in the studio in a suit that costs more than your house, but the people who are just like you. That's who I think you should be getting your news and your opinion from. So help us out with our mission statement. That's where we have going with that. GiveSendGo.com/turnsofpages101 if you want to help out. And let's get into the finance, starting with the Dow. The Dow had a whipsaw day yesterday. I would almost say that this wound up even, closing upwards of 67.29, which means that for 2 days we've had an upswing. We've had a swing back up on everything, but it's been just barely both times. Dow ending at 33,128.79 after dipping as low as 32,940 throughout the intraday. So that's what we see coming off of that. Looking in at the Bitcoin on the 1 day, took a very, very steady climb throughout the day. Looking back into the 5 day, going back to May 3rd, looks like there was a significant drop off once again. And then a climb and a climb and a significant climb, and now we're back to the point where we're seeing a significant climb again. I'm sorry, a steady climb, not a significant one, but a little bit of whipsaw there, so, well, check in with your financial advisor and see if this is right for you. Don't take your advice from some guy on the internet. And looking in at the fuel, the jump is here. Our low price leader is all the way up to $3.69, and that's the BP in Sun Prairie around the Madison area. Going on there, $3.69 is holding on a few stations throughout the area. Otherwise, jumping all the way up to $3.76 for the next leader, and $3.78 at the Speedway in Windsor is the more expensive station. So, yeah, just a couple weeks ago we were seeing $3.59s, $3.69s, $3.61s as your peaks, and now we're at $3.78. So the gas is coming back up. Interesting times we live in, and nobody's protesting about this. Nobody's having a word about this. We're all protesting about what might happen in the Supreme Court that nobody even knew about until 2 days ago. Let's grab one from IBD. Let's see what the finance is doing while we're gathering some more friends in here. And tell some friends, of course, get some more people in here. Maybe we'll get some Twitch people in here. We all like Twitch people around here. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Jones Futures new market rally awaits Fed decision. AMD lithium play Livent jump late. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose modestly early Wednesday, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. AMD popped and lithium play Livent skyrocketed in the after-hours earnings, but investor focus is on the Federal Reserve meeting decision this afternoon. It's day 2 of a stock market rally attempt, but investors aren't making big bets, with Fed rate hikes on tap. AMD, Livent, and shipping firm Matson were among the notable earnings reports after the close. AMD is just off the 2022 lows, but their earnings and guidance are important for the semiconductor space. Lithium stock kicks off earnings for EV battery materials firms, with lithium giant Albemarle due Wednesday and rare earth miner MP Materials on Thursday. Those are the two places that are allowed to be fossil fuel guzzling. Matson stock is among shipping stocks trying to come back in favor. Early Wednesday, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals topped views while LNG leader Cheniere Energy is on tap. LNG stock is setting up a new base. Regeneron has round-tripped a solid gain from a traditional buy point in early entry, though it hasn't broken down. There were some positive earnings movers on Tuesday. LPX and Atcor flashed buy signals in their strong results. LNG is on the IBD leaderboard. Regeneron is on the IBD 50. Louisiana Pacific was Tuesday's IBD stock of the day. On the futures, Dow futures were up 0.4% versus fair value. S&P futures were also up 0.4%. NASDAQ futures rose 0.3%. Crude oil jumped more than 4%. The European Union proposed phasing out Russian oil imports over 6 months. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Well, I hate to tell you this, but that's probably not the best decision for you right now. Now, if you'd have said a year, I'd have said, okay, let's at least hear out the plan. But over 6 months, that's a very, very tight time period. To get yourself off the only energy source you've had basically since the Cold War. But we'll see what happens with that. We'll keep watching this. Let's grab one more finance article from CNN. Looks like we've got our friends are gathering in here, so we'll see how many people we can get. Let's see if we can get to 15 again. We've been doing that consistently every day. Wall Street needs a reason to buy stocks. Is this it? From Julia Horowitz. I'm sorry. I thought hedge fund managers and billionaires were bad people. Stocks have been volatile in recent weeks, notching their worst start to the year since 1939. Between the war in Ukraine, decades-high inflation, and recession fears, it's been difficult for investors to convince themselves to put more money into the stock market. Yet Goldman Sachs has a reminder for Wall Street: hundreds of billions of dollars in support that could help ease angst is on the way. What's happening? Ahead of earnings season, companies face restrictions on repurchasing their own shares, weighing on the largest source of demand for U.S. stocks. Now, with many companies having reported earnings, they can enter full-on buying mode again. That could unleash a flood of money onto the market. American companies have authorized more than $400 billion in share buybacks so far this year, which, by the way, I was also told on this network was evil. That's 22% more than the record level seen this time last year. Though the economic environment has become more challenging, companies are still growing earnings at a healthy clip and amassing large reserves that can be tapped to give rewards to shareholders. Again, I was told that all of this was evil. Solid earnings growth and large cash balances among S&P 500 firms will support continued buyback growth, analysts at Goldman Sachs said. The firm predicts the S&P buybacks will grow 12% this year. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. When you look at something like this, it is not about consistency, it's not about principles, it's not about morals. It is about the fact that they need to have a good economy going into the midterms. And the only real day-to-day reflection of the economy, save going and seeing what the quarterly result is, hey, look at what the stock market is doing here. Because you really only get the GDP quarterly. You can estimate based on what you see around you, but you really only get the hard numbers on the GDP quarterly. The Dow, as we see on this program, you can see every day. And these people like this really need to see a 37,000, 38,000 Dow by midterms. Otherwise, they might be screwed. Not even the abortion argument would be able to help them. And we'll be talking about that too. But that's what we see coming off the finance. Let's get into the main news of the day. And I want to start with this one here. This is probably an older video. I remember this video. Patrick Curry-Elchi tweets out, "This is the moment that changed everything. It indisputably showed the demonic nature of their movement." Of course, going back and trying to dehumanize the people that, we don't typically like off of this side. But I do think it's worth noting that this is part of where the culture shift came from, was this clip right here. So let's have a listen to that and let's see where that goes.
Delegate Tran.
Yes, sir.
How late in a pregnancy would your bill apply if a physician was simply willing to certify that the continuation of the pregnancy would impair the mental health of the woman? How late are we talking about?
Well, so the way the suggestion that we've made in the bill is to say it's in the third trimester and at the, with the certification of the physician. So
how late in the third trimester would you be able to do that?
it's very unfortunate that our physicians, witnesses were not able to attend today to speak specifically.
No, I'm
to
talking
that.
about your bill. How late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman?
Or physical health.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm talking about the mental health.
So, through the third trimester. The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay, but to the end of the third trimester.
Yep, I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
So, where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she is about to give a birth, would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make.
I understand
at
that. I'm asking
point.
if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
There are points, and they talk about viability. There are points where we see stuff like this, and we listen to things like this. Now, I will say that there is some level of consistency. While I don't like what they're going with, they are making a hard point as to where they say life begins. I don't like it, because I think that life begins, obviously, too. There's the hard point as well. It does seem like on either side of the argument, the most extreme ends of it. You've either got life begins at conception or life begins as the body passes through the birth canal. But they've got the hard points either way. My problem with this, of course, is the fact that at the point that you're dilating, that baby could presumably live outside the womb on its own. When she's in there giving birth, that means that that baby is ready to come back out of here. But this was the point. And it was shortly after this that we heard talk about the fact that there are people talking about, oh, well, an abortion fails and the baby is born. We keep it comfortable until we decide what to do with it. That's infanticide. Let's grab one from Reuters here. Do something, Democrats. Abortion rights supporters chant at U.S. Supreme Court. From Moira Warburton. So, and as I said on the announcement, when I went over to Twitter, I know a lot of people right now are talking about the actual leak itself. A lot of people are talking about the decision that the leak contains, and a lot of people are talking about the cover-up. What's most important to me right now is the protest, because this is going to show a big part of the dichotomy in this country, and a big part of the double standard that goes with this as well. Plus, I've got a tweet from Motherboard later on in the program that's going to show an absolute double standard for sure. But the absolute double standard, I want to talk about the protests and why we're not talking about an insurrection at this point. Because I keep being told that all the people gathered outside of the Capitol on January 6th for the Selfie Fest, and they rarely show the people from the inside. They've been getting a little bit more bold with this later, as of late. But I'm pretty sure that the January 6th committee is dead. I don't think anybody remembers that something happened on January 6th at this point. And for good reason, because especially if this continues on, what we are going to see from this is arguably worse than what happened during the Selfie Fest. But we'll see. Let's grab this one. Hundreds of abortion rights supporters gathered in anger at the U.S. Supreme Court after an unprecedented leak showed a majority of justices poised to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision that legalized abortion nationwide. Within hours of Politico's publication on Monday of an initial draft opinion that would overturn the landmark decision, a crowd was calling on Democrats in Congress to take action to protect access to abortion while decrying the possible ruling that would take away what they see as a fundamental right. In the first line of the draft is the moral issue, Annie McDonnell, 19, a student at George Washington University, said, referring to the draft opinion, if it's a moral issue, you shouldn't be depriving us of our choice. Justices, get out of my vagina, one sign held aloft read. I love someone who had an abortion, read another. The crowd was interspersed with a smaller number of anti-abortion activists, including some with the drums and guitars chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Roe v. Wade has got to go." Don't use their stupid chant. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion rights supporters chanted back. Chants of "Do something Democrats" also broke out. Based on the opinion written by conservative Justice Samuel Alito, the court would find that Roe v. Wade was a decision that was wrongly decided because the U.S. Constitution makes no specific mention of abortion rights. Reuters was not able to confirm the authenticity of the draft. Moira Flaith, 22, said she was horrified when she got a notification of the news around 9:15 p.m. I think a part of me has to be cautiously optimistic, like seeing people out here who are willing to get up at 10, 11 at night. And do this gives me hope for my generation, but it's going to be a very uphill battle, the University of Delaware student said. Her roommate, Erin Sheehan, 21, said, "I think everyone should be able to fight for this, and no one, especially no men, should tell us what we can or cannot do with our bodies." So, that is, and there's some things that we can break down off of this. First off, the, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Roe v. Wade has got to go." Find another song. Good God. I'm very interested in the "Do Something Democrats" side of this, because that seems to be what the demand is. Now, what we see off of this is showing us the fact that memory is very short, because a lot of people are pointing out the fact that, "Oh, well, Mansion and Cinema won't change the filibuster, so we can do this." So the law to codify Roe versus Wade has been going around since 2008. Most notably in 2008 into 2009, Democrats held a supermajority in the Senate, a filibuster-proof majority, if you will. And that went along with a Democratic House and one President Barack Hussein Obama. If they were really serious about this, they had a chance. But they weren't serious about this, and this is something I've gone on to for a long time. And it's the same conversation that we have with student loans. It's the same conversation that we have with the border when we go to the other side. It's the same conversation that we had, although they did actually make an attempt to do the border. I'll give credit where credit is due of that. But when we go to the other side, the border, that's another one, that's a perpetual one, and the abortion thing. If you fix these problems, you don't have that perpetual issue to run on. And that's going to be something important to watch and see, especially coming into campaign season. I do think that there is a part of this that is motivated to get a united front out to the polls for the midterms. Quite frankly, I think when this leaked, I think Republicans lost the midterms. Because in addition to seeing a vast upswell of voters running to the polls in 6 months, with something like this, you may see honking to a scale that you have never honked before. So, there's a lot going on with this. There's definitely a lot. But I'm entertained, and going back to what I said, do something Democrats. No, you keep voting for these people, and they keep giving you the empty promise every year. It's not our fault, the evil Republicans did it, just go vote for us, give us more power, and we'll do it again, we'll do it this time. And they never do. And it's the same honest argument that I had with the Republican Party very, very quickly into my stint with the Republican Party. Back when I was a Bushite neocon, because I thought that was the only other option away from being a socialist Obamaite. And I could not bring myself to be a socialist Obamaite, even at 24 years old. But it was the same argument that I had for Republicans at the time. You know, you keep promising to do this, to do that, instill the Christian values over this, that, and the next thing, and you don't do anything except for beg people to give you more power so you can go and do it the next time. None of these people cares about you. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, none of these people that are sitting in office care about you. They'll come in, they'll shake your hand at a campaign event. They'll come up and give you the speech and tell you about all the wonderful things they're going to do. And then they sit and raise your taxes and take a little bit more off the top, make themselves richer. But that's what we see off of that. From NBC 5 out of Chicago. We might actually watch some of this video too, because that'll be a region that we haven't looked at yet. Protests held after draft Supreme Court ruling reveals possible overturn of Roe versus Wade. No author given. The debate over abortion in the U.S. has been ongoing for decades, but it's more contentious than ever after a draft opinion released by Politico showed that the Supreme Court is poised to strike down the ruling that made the procedure legal. On Tuesday, individuals on both sides of the abortion debate held rallies with politicians speaking out and experts discussing how the ruling could impact the 2022 election cycle. At an anti-abortion event in the South Loop, demonstrators voiced their support of the draft ruling, which could reverse the 1973 landmark decision Roe versus Wade. As a mother myself, I'm looking forward to celebrating our children, Anna Kinsky said. Mothers like Kinsky and Latonia Lambert said they wouldn't fully celebrate the ruling until it's likely made official later this year. Well, Latonia and Anna, one thing you have to pay attention to right now is politically, they almost have to do this right now, because if they do turn around and back out on this, there will be no legitimacy to this. There will be no way to be able to come out and say, oh, yeah, we still totally wanted to change our minds. It had nothing to do with public pressure while these people are protesting outside of the Supreme Court. And that's a part of the reason that I wanted to talk about the protests as well. Partially because not a lot of other people are talking about them, and partially because I know that's going to be a driver for what happens. Let's watch some of the protests, though.
And it happened just hours after police held a news conference to address a violent weekend and promised to add more patrols starting today. Let's go live to NBC5's Chris Coffey on the story for us right now, and he has the latest. Chris?
Allison, today we've seen police vehicles patrolling the loop and officers on foot. Not a large police presence, but people we talk to say the extra police will help make the area safer. Now, this comes after a violent weekend and more crime downtown early today and yesterday. More gunshots rang out in the loop overnight as 4 people were hurt. Police say 2 pedestrians shot up a car at the light near South Wells and Ida B. Wells Drive. A 26-year-old woman who was walking nearby was hit in the leg. And on Monday, there was a scary situation at Northwestern Chicago campus when police say a carjacking suspect entered a building there and a lockdown was called. Now, police do say the suspect was caught and no one was injured. Still, Chicago.
Okay, so apparently that's not the protest stuff, but still, something to look at. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that we're not seeing any major protests coming out of the loop. Let's grab one from Politico. Protesters faced off outside of Supreme Court after breach of draft Roe opinion. From Nicholas Wu, Anthony Andragna, and Olivia Beavers. Protesters turned out in droves before the Supreme Court Tuesday in light of a newly disclosed draft majority opinion that would strike down abortion rights around the country. No, see, you're already doing the political propaganda side of this. Now, I do agree, there are like, 5 states that have a trigger law out there, like, hey, if this happens, then we automatically have this law passed, and it's outlawed here. And I do think it's excessive, too, that come back out and arrest the people that have gone out of state to go back and do this. I do find that excessive. Whether or not There's just such a mess. There's such a mess out of this whole thing. Demonstrations in the morning were relatively calm, though the crowd grew throughout the day. Those on both sides of the issue faced off in front of the court as abortion rights protesters held signs saying "My body, my choice," and anti-abortion protesters chanted, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Roe versus Wade has got to go." Democrats, angered by the draft opinion that was disclosed to Politico, are hopeful the possible overturning of abortion rights could energize their base heading into the November midterm elections, but the Supreme Court's move is a motivating factor for the right as well. A self-described angry but committed Elizabeth Warren addressed protesters in front of the court and told them that she would continue to fight to protect access to abortion. We will watch video of that in just a bit. Speakers led the crowd in abortion rights chants and slammed the draft opinion. Some in the crowd were frustrated by a perceived lack of action by Democrats in Congress and President Biden. Senate Democrats will vote next week on legislation to protect the abortion rights, but it lacks enough support to clear a GOP filibuster. "Where is Joe?" the crowd chanted at one point. "It's just so outrageous. I can't believe this country is what my daughter is going to have to face," said Tenji Singo, a 41-year-old stay-at-home mom who traveled from Baltimore to take part in the protest. Madhavi Sankar, a 26-year-old medical student from George Washington University, said, "This is actually just ridiculous. Healthcare is a fundamental right. It is not. And abortion is a part of that." Some of you guys have different opinions on that. But healthcare is not a right, and you know that. A woman's choice as whether or not to continue her pregnancy is one that should be discussed between her and her doctor, Sankar added. No one else. Okay, then stop shouting it on fucking TV, Michelle Wolf, I'm looking at you. Others in the crowd carried a mix of handmade and professional signs, and one woman wore a t-shirt that said, "Everyone loves someone who had an abortion." Others held signs reading, "Bands off our bodies and abortion is healthcare," as a large group of Senate Democrats gathered across the street in protest of the draft opinion. Anti-abortion demonstrators had signs of their own, with one reading, "Divest from big abortion now." Earlier in the afternoon, an anti-abortion group held a prayer circle in the plaza. Senator Alex Padilla of California, member of the Judiciary Committee, stopped by the protest and predicted that abortion would be a driving issue in the November midterm elections. No, it's going to be the only issue in the midterm elections. "The vast majority of the American public supports a woman's right to choose," he said. "That's what's on the line." The court erected barricades in front of the steps, and after publication of the Politico report on Monday evening, barring protests from getting closer to the chambers. Interestingly enough, the barricades were already there. Now, we can get as tinfoily as we want off of that. Let's just look back at the timeline here. Back last week, a man went out in front of the Supreme Court and lit himself on fire. And he screamed to the high heavens. And the barricades were still up from the fact that he was out and did that, because the thought was that there was going to be another protest. So conveniently, the barricades were already there. And also, t-shirts were printed up, signs were printed up, professionally printed, already ready to go, because these people were already gathered. We saw some of the footage yesterday morning, that people were already there ready to go Monday night. God damn, my days are already running together here. And one of the things that I have to wonder now is if gentlemen who burned himself alive in front of the Supreme Court in order to trigger the security event and the barricades knew that this was coming. I'm not a really tinfoily person, but, sometimes I wonder. We're working closely with our law enforcement agencies to prepare for any potential demonstrations in the area of the Supreme Court, including additional officers in the area, the department said. From the Hill, protests erupt at the Supreme Court after a report of draft opinion. From Lexi Lonis, let's just look a little bit into this. A lot of this, I think, is going to be a review. Protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court from both sides. Politico obtained a copy. Video circulating online. We'll be looking at some of those. The first line in the draft is that this is a moral issue, and if it's a moral issue, you shouldn't be depriving us of our choice. Anna McDonald, a student at George Washington University, told Reuters. I've been praying for this as long as I've understood what a baby was. An anti-abortion advocate told NBC Washington, it's a big deal. Life begins at conception. Yeah, that's basically a review. Let's grab one from the Daily Mail. Talking about Miss Warren. Republicans have been waiting for this. Furious Elizabeth Warren joined Supreme Court protesters to slam extremist justices who want to impose views on Americans as heckler shouts that she wants to dismember children. Oh. And I've got a couple different videos from this. I don't know how many of those are going to be the same. This is from Jeff Earl, Deputy U.S. Political Editor for DailyMail.com. Elizabeth Warren vented at the Supreme Court Tuesday following the leak of the draft opinion that would strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade. I am angry, the mass Democrat fumed. Angry and upset and determined. Don't worry, you're like, what, 60? No offense, especially if my mom is watching, but, you know, by the time you're that age, it's pretty unlikely you're going to have an abortion. She joined the protesters who rushed the High Court hours after Politico reported on the draft opinion. Gesticulating with her arm as she spoke, she said Americans want to maintain Roe as the law of the land, while a heckler outside the court interrupted and accused her of trying to dismember children. We've heard enough from the extremists, she said, before heading away from the scene. Let's watch. This will fall on the poorest of Americans, and that's why you have all of your abortion clinics in the poorest neighborhoods. Because it's a money driver for you.
Be able to support the children they have. Well, I am here because I am angry, and I am here because the United States Congress can change all of this. Yes. Angry, but committed. Understand this. Understand this. I have seen the world where abortion is illegal. And we are not.
No, you have not. You are not that old.
Going back. Not ever. No. So say it with me. We are not going back. We are not going back. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever. Not ever. Never.
So there's your Elizabeth Warren speech for the day, and just because
Roe v. Wade.
I have more.
Do you think it should be overturned? And would you put...
This is from, I think this is the same speech, but another angle, because the same, the girl who was supposed to be so angry, who was smiling in the last video when, she was taking a selfie with Elizabeth Warren, she's so angry. But let's watch this again.
Angling for decades now, and we are going to fight back. I am angry because of who will pay the price for this. It will not be wealthy women. Wealthy women can get on an airplane. They can fly to another state. They can fly to another country. They can get the protection they need. This will fall on the poorest women in our country. This will fall on the young women who have been abused, who are victims of incest. This will fall on those who have been raped.
Okay, and this is the fallacy that they always bring up. And at this point, it's time to bring up the compromise to this. The incest, the rape, they're going to be prosecuted too. Okay. So I've got a compromise for that. Because I wanted to show you, and this is how you turn this argument around to all these progressives who think that this is the actual issue, is the incest and the rape. The compromise you offer to them is this. Okay, if that's what's important to you, the incest and the rape, I can tell you that these are bad situations that lead to bad things. These are absolutely horrifying situations. So, we carve out an exception for all the people who are seeking this procedure for incest and rape, and everybody else who is involved, who's just doing it for convenience, is subject to the death penalty, both the provider and the seeker. Because you're so concerned about what it'll be for incest and rape. What else do we have here? Will Lowry says, visibly shaken and angry Senator Warren just spoke in front of SCOTUS. The National News.
Senator, how are you feeling? I am angry.
Angry and upset?
I am angry!
Determined. The United States Congress can keep Roe versus Wade the law of the land. They just need to do it.
I've never seen you so angry. You seem to be...
This is what the Republicans have been working toward this day for decades. They have been out there plotting, carefully cultivating these Supreme Court justices,
oh my God,
so they could have a majority on the bench who would accomplish something that the majority of Americans do not want. 69% of people across this country, red states and blue states, old people and young people, want Roe versus Wade to maintain as the law of the land. We need to do that, and we have a right. Extremists, we've heard enough from the extremists, and we're tired of it. Thank you.
Senator, does this open the door for other constitutional rights?
There's the heckler right there.
Something that the majority of Americans do not want. 69% of people across this country, red states and blue states, old people and young people, want Roe versus Wade to maintain as the law of the land. We need to do that, and we have a right. Extremists, we've heard enough from the extremists, and we're tired of it. Thank you.
Senator, does this open the door for other constitutional rights?
There you go. You just want to dismember children in the womb. I think Warden needs just a little bit of fire water, just to calm the nerves a little bit. Christina Pushaw, who is the DeSantis press secretary, if she's correct, then the majority of Americans in red and blue states alike want Roe versus Wade to be law of the land, and why hasn't Congress actually passed a law to that effect? And does she think SCOTUS rulings are based on the Constitution or public sentiment? And TRHL official, has anyone tried to ask her to calm down? What else do we have here? DHS agent shoves pro-abortion protesters, says the link, cops clash with pro-abortion protesters in LA as thousands demonstrate across America one day after leaked draft opinion showed the Supreme Court is likely to overturn Roe versus Wade. From Melissa Koenig. Department of Homeland Security agents clashed with a crowd of pro-choice activists in Los Angeles that spontaneously, yeah, fuck you, took to the streets in a protest of a draft of the Supreme Court opinion showing it's likely to overturn Roe versus Wade. They were filmed aggressively driving up to a crowd of dozens of enraged activists which had blocked off streets with their protest in an unlawful assembly and shoving them backwards in the face of their fury. A lone DHS agent was quickly surrounded by screaming protesters, one waving a Soviet Union flag, as he used a baton to ward them off and continually shouted, "Back up." But the protesters swarmed him, shouting at him to get the fuck out of here, until he received support from another armed DHS agent. The clashes followed widespread demonstrations that marked the cities across the land as news leaked of the Supreme Court's draft decision to overturn the landmark Roe versus Wade ruling that had effectively legalized abortion across America. I'm a little surprised there's no video of this. Oh, there's one. So we'll watch that in just a minute. But yeah, here's some of the stills of this. You know, surrounding on the car. The push. Let's have a look at what that looked like. Alright, so now I've actually got to back that up or refresh this here, but I want to go look at that video again because I'm pretty sure that I think the protesters were on the right off of that one. That cop should not have shoved that woman. That push should not have happened. Right here. Oh, they have to put their ad junk all in the middle of everything. Yeah, no, that was unwarranted. And I can't necessarily hear what it is that he's saying in the midst of it, but like the tap on the shoulder, I would have even say it could have gone too far. I don't know where that came from, but why the shove? Why the push like that? I'm not even 100% sure why they're specifically protesting DHS for that. They like federal police usually. But that's what we see from that. From KTLA, protesters clash with police at Pershing Square. A protest at Pershing Square in downtown Los Angeles Tuesday left an officer injured as protesters clashed with police. The protest was organized following the leaked Supreme Court document that indicates the High Court's plan to overturn Roe v. Wade, the landmark legal decision that protects a woman's constitutionally protected right to abortion. Initially, the LAPD provided an escort for those attending the rally as they walked from the U.S. Courthouse on West 1st Street to Pershing Square, according to Chief Michael Moore. Around 8:50 p.m., the LAPD sent out a tweet urging people to avoid the area due to police activity, which was expected to cause traffic delays and congestion. Chief Moore later said that some of those who were in attendance at the rally attempted to take the intersection, and some of the crowd threw rocks and bottles at officers as police tried to clear the area. Video from the scene showed armed officers trying to contain the crowd and the windshield of at least one police cruiser smashed. One officer was apparently injured, Moore said, although the extent of the injuries was unclear. The activity led to the police department declaring a citywide tactical alert, meaning officers were to be on high alert and expected to be on standby throughout the evening. By 10:30 p.m., the scene was mostly cleared and the citywide alert was canceled, police said. From Fox, at least one police officer injured during clash with abortion rights protesters. An abortion rights protest in downtown LA escalated into a clash with law enforcement officers, were quickly called dispersed the crowds, resulting in the injury of at least one officer on Tuesday night. Photos and video online showed officers monitoring the crowd, which grew from a peaceful gathering of about 30 people outside the federal courthouse to over 250 people flooding the streets and blocking traffic, but then some protesters began throwing objects at the officers. LA police issued a citywide tactical alert during the heat of the clash. We attempted to communicate clear and provide dispersal order to the group, LA Police Department Chief Michael Moore said, but then the crowd began to throw rocks and bottles at officers. Moore also reported at least one officer had been injured. Do I have this somewhere else? I might have this in the Libs of TikTok video. So, let's see what we see coming off of that. Now, and of course, surprisingly, it does look like these are everywhere, supposedly. That's what they tell us anyway. But realistically, I mean, we haven't seen a lot of major reporting off of this. We've seen some stuff from the Daily Mail, from some local outlets and Fox, but, you know, your CNNs, your MSDNCs, your NBCs, ABCs, etc., are mostly leaving the protests alone. And again, if there were some sort of protest, and it goes right back to what we saw in Grand Rapids. If we'd have seen consistency based on what we saw during the St. George and the St. Jacob riots, that would have been wall-to-wall news coverage everywhere, especially the fact that I still maintain that was an unjustified shot. Especially given that fact, you'd have seen wall-to-wall protests. But we hear crickets off of this. It would be detrimental right now for a mainstream news outlet, for the Democrat Party, it would be massively detrimental to show an actual protest going on in this country. And they know it. They very much know it. So that's what we see for that. From the Daily Wire. I went to the protest at the Supreme Court. The viciousness was palpable. From Mary Margaret Olahan. I could hear the massive crowds chanting and screaming as I walked up the Capitol Hill to the Supreme Court. Strident chants of My Body, My Choice and Abortion is Healthcare rang out in the beautiful spring events. Curious joggers paused to wander through the masses. Capitol Hill residents gingerly threaded their dogs through the crowd. Parents guided their children closer to get a better look. Abortion protests are not uncommon in Washington, D.C. almost every year since the monumental decision. Hundreds of thousands of pro-life activists gather annually to march against abortion, and in recent years, the Women's March has gathered to support supporters to protest against former President Trump and increasingly pro-life legislation. But tonight was different. A Monday evening report from Politico revealed that Roe v. Wade is most likely to be overturned, and the anger and desperation from pro-abortion rights activists was palpable. The police were ready, and they had sectioned off crowds with fencing and were standing watch on the Supreme Court steps. Roads around the court were carefully blocked off. Officers patrolled the streets. Police dogs sniffed out the premises. The crowd seemed to be almost entirely made up of pro-abortion protesters. The only pro-life group I encountered was the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. I bumped into them as I briefly left the crowd to grab a sandwich, and they urged me to follow them, promising me that they were going to make a statement. When I found them later, they were doing just that. Abortion is murder, the small knot of PAAU members chanted into megaphones, completely surrounded by pro-abortion rights protesters screaming curse words at them. I pushed my way through the crowd until I could see and film what was going on. A girl dressed in denim, while sporting both a mask and sunglasses, flung water at the PAAU members and splashed a man next to me who looked annoyed and surprised. Let's watch. Well, I guess I can say that there's probably going to be some luck to the little bit of soy that's running around that area right now, because a lot of them are probably going to get unprotected sex tonight because those girls want to go have an abortion now. Speaking of protests, not protests that happen on the ground, but something that happened more online, because there's been plenty of protests like that too. This person Amanda Duarte. Amanda Duarte tweeted out, and by the way, I have no idea who this person is. Her bio, it's blue check, says writer-performer, regional sex symbol, radish enthusiast, just a really great guy. Blue check for whatever reason, I have no idea why, but I mean, in the situation that we're in right now, you might want to take regional sex symbol out of this because I think that'll be inappropriate, and you'll see why in just a second. Amanda Duarte says, I said something insanely awful and stupid on Twitter last night. The intent does not matter, so I will not attempt to defend or explain it. It was racist and had a racist impact. I am terribly sorry to anyone and everyone who read it and who were hurt by it. Duarte continues, I deleted my account briefly because I wasn't sure of the right thing to do. And I knew that it wasn't and isn't to try to answer for what I had said. I know a lot of people are angry and looking to tell me why, so I'm reactivating it because I think that's important. Please know that I'm deeply, deeply sorry, and if there's anything I can do to repair the damage of this, please do let me know. Thank you. And then I turned around and went back and replied to that and said, damn it! Now I want to know what it is, and who you are, and why this is on my timeline. Well, here's what she had to say. Evil Red Kid on Twitter screenshotted this and said, the views expressed here do not reflect the views of Contemporary Turns Pages Productions or any of its creators. The views are the views of the original poster. Amanda Duarte tweets out, I do wonder how these white supremacist lawmakers would feel if their little white daughters were raped and impregnated by black men. Oh. Now, do I believe that Miss Duarte actually believes this? Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, hell yes. Do I believe she has a fantasy about this? Probably. But I'm guessing that after she posted that, it wasn't her deleting her account and taking this down that caused this to happen. I believe, if I remember correctly, she's a New York Times writer, but it doesn't say that in her bio, so I have no idea. But whoever is pulling her strings found out about this, probably because somebody tattled on her. In progressive circles, that's almost entirely necessary. And she got called in an office somewhere and says, and whoever it was that's pulling the string says, Amanda, you can't do this. No, I know you believe that. I believe it too. But we can't say that out loud. So, that is what she had to say, just briefly from the Blaze. Liberal writer deletes Twitter account after astoundingly racist tweet about Roe vs. Wade leak. And the only reason I have this on here is because there's a very, very good chance that we might figure out who the fuck she is. A liberal writer deleted her Twitter account after posting an astoundingly racist tweet trying to bash conservatives about the leaked decision about the Roe vs. Wade case. Amanda Duarte was intending to insult pro-life conservatives, but her tweet offended so many people she left Twitter on Monday. I wonder how these white supremacist lawmakers would feel if their little white daughters were raped and impregnated by black men, read the tweet from the New York City-based comedian. Oh, she's a comedian. Now I know she believes that. Duarte deleted the tweet, but the screenshots were widely circulated on social media. Neville the Cat says, I see the left is having a good day. What the fuck? Seriously. Glenn? We've got to have a talk about your advertising. But, yeah, apparently she's a comedian of some sort. All right, from Reddit. I think that's the first time I've ever said this on this program. From Reddit. My girlfriend, 34F, is planning on withholding sex from me, 38F, because of Roe v. Wade overturn. Wait, you're both female. What? Oh. Give me a moment while I go and gore my fucking eyes out. Yesterday we were both so outraged over the plans to overturn Roe v. Wade, we're going to a protest later today. She was reading a Reddit post on a witchy subreddit she likes and found an idea to withhold sex until Roe v. Wade is secured. That it wouldn't be right, especially if we got pregnant. I'm a trans woman pre-op and she is AFAB, so it's still possible. I reminded her, as a woman myself too, we're both affected by this misogynistic upheaval, but to no avail. We're actually talking about kids before I get my operation, and we're thinking of having one more. She has 2 kids from a previous relationship. How do I approach this topic with her without causing conflict? My concerns are my needs. I have a high libido. Our plans for children. She's reaching an age where it might soon not be safe for her to or the baby. It kind of feels like she isn't seeing me as a woman. Oh, Jesus. I really need to pre-screen some of this stuff before I put it on here. It kind of feels like she isn't seeing me as a woman. It feels like something that should be withheld from men, whereas we should be in it together as women. Wow, this is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? How do I approach this topic? I want to respect our motives as a woman, but for her to also to respect mine as a woman and to respect our relationship. Wow. I read that. Wow, I read that. If you'll give me a moment, I think I'm going to have to step away from the camera for a minute and go bash my fucking head through drywall. Holy shit. Wow. This is real life. TLDR, girlfriend wants to hold sex to cause political pressure. I think it's misdirected. I don't even know where to begin with this. I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea where to even start here. So, and I mean, with this, we are seeing a lot of an actual straight sex withholding. I know a lot of women on Twitter. We need to have a sex strike until this shit is fixed. Well, I think that's what the conservatives wanted you to do to begin with, is to have a sex strike. What is it I always say when they keep talking about abortion? And when we get that little fucking soy jack that can't even show his face? Have you ever just tried not fucking? No, seriously, by the way. I had a guy come in. I asked before any of this went down. This was last week sometime. I jumped in, helping out a friend of the show, John Boy, on an argument over on Twitter. And I asked somebody in one of the threads he was in of, hey, have you tried not fucking? And he's like, it's easy for you to say not to have sex when you look like this. Nobody wants to have sex with you. Meanwhile, his profile picture on his one follower account is Ben Shapiro with a bunch of shit on his face. So, there's that. Alright, Marco Rubio tweets out, the next time you hear the far left preaching about how they're fighting to preserve the Republic's institutions and norms, they're not. Remember how they leaked a Supreme Court opinion in an attempt to intimidate the justices on abortion. Reading back to what we saw yesterday, it's impossible to overstate the earthquake this will cause inside the court. And in terms of destruction of trust among justices and staff, this leak is the gravest, most unforgivable sin. And there are a lot of people right now who believe that this leak was leaked to cause damage to that this was leaked by the right to cover up what's about to happen with Trump. This is leaked by the right to cover up what's about to happen with the January 6th committee, and to also try to force the justices in line to make sure that this happens. Meanwhile, there are people like Rubio who think that this was leaked by the left to try to gin up outrage and lockstep their voters and get them all out to vote for the midterms that it looks like they're going to be losing. I think that there's some validity to both. I think the biggest one, of course, is to keep people from talking about the record profits that Pfizer showed over a vaccine that was supposed to be free. But this one just got me. So, you guys remember last year when Joe Rogan was prescribed ivermectin from a doctor and everybody else in the world says, you can't use horse medicines. He's taking horse paste. He's taking this. It's a Motherboard, a division of Vice, tweets out, misoprostol is a relatively easy to acquire from veterinary sources since it's, in addition to medically inducing abortions, it's also used to treat ulcers in horses. Yes, this tweet exists. So this horse medicine is okay. But the evil ivermectin, that's not. And they addressed, by the way, what we had to say with this. You may be reminded of ivermectin, which is used to control parasites in horses. It became a favored but ineffective COVID treatment among conspiracy theorists. The main difference here is that misoprostol does something other than giving you the shits. Yeah, that happened. Speaking of what actually happened, Bill Barr has named the specific crime that may have been committed in the leak of the Supreme Court draft. Former U.S. Attorney General William Barr responded Tuesday to the leak of an initial draft of the majority opinion of the Supreme Court's ruling on Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health by suggesting a crime may have been committed and that a special counsel may be need to be appointed to deal with the matter. Barr, who made the remarks during an interview on SiriusXM's The Megyn Kelly Show, said the leak was unlike anything he'd ever seen. I was flabbergasted. It's really unprecedented, Barr said. Our institutions have become increasingly politicized, but I never imagined this could happen to the Supreme Court, which has always protected its confidentiality. And for someone to let this out in order to influence the final decision is really beyond the pale. On the matter of what an investigation would look like, Barr responded, I think the chief would have the option, perhaps he still will, to appoint a special counsel. Not the classical criminal case, but a court can appoint a counsel, and he could bring a former U.S. attorney or someone with a criminal law background, and I'm sure he would get the support he needed from the FBI or any other law enforcement agency. It could be obstructing the administration of justice, the due process of justice, Barr said. Obstruction means you're attempting to influence, through some kind of wrongdoing. So they're going to try to do obstruction. How long is this? 10 minutes. We'll skip this one. Because even I can't stand 10 minutes of Megyn Kelly. From the Hill. Manchin backs filibuster amid calls to codify abortion rights. From Jordan Carney. Could you tell the difference between this plant-based egg and this chicken egg? Well, yeah, because I don't want to find out. Joe Manchin defended the filibuster on Tuesday as some members of the Democratic caucus called for nixing the 60-vote hurdle in order to codify abortion rights. Manchin declined on several times on Tuesday to address the leaked Supreme Court draft opinion written by Sam Alito that would overturn Roe v. Wade, the landmark case that guarantees the right to the procedure. But asked about getting rid of the filibuster, Manchin defended it, saying that the filibuster is the only protection we have in democracy. We protected women's rights with the filibuster, he added. Manchin is one of two Democratic senators who have largely defended the 60-vote hurdle required for most legislation to pass the Senate. He and Sinema voted against an effort by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and other Democratic colleagues in January to weaken the Senate's filibuster rule to allow voting rights legislation to pass. Sinema also defended the filibuster on Tuesday, saying the protections in the Senate safeguarding against the erosion of women's access to health care have been used a half a dozen times in the past 10 years and are more important now than ever. Reading from Axios. On a follow-up to this, Democrats lack votes to end filibuster for abortion protections. From Elena Treen. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema said Tuesday they plan to uphold the filibuster in the wake of leaked draft decision from the U.S. Supreme Court on overturning Roe v. Wade. Democrats have very few legislative options to try to stop the Supreme Court from carrying out a decision that would end the nationwide right to abortion, while Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, about to hold a vote on codifying Roe v. Wade, the measure, which as of now does not even have 50 votes, would fail to meet the filibuster's 60-vote threshold. Manchin told reporters the filibuster is a protection of democracy. While Sinema is supportive of abortion rights, her spokesperson said her views on preserving the filibuster are unchanged and pointed to 7 Senate votes where a 60-vote threshold ultimately protected abortion rights. So, yep, they're not going to move on that one because, I mean, realistically, it's a real situation where, especially as contentious as this midterm is, if the filibuster is ended and now the Turtle Man gets the seat back, gets the gavel back, with, I would say realistically, a 52 seat majority, then he'll just go back and run roughshod over everything. Not that it'll do anything anyway, because everything will get vetoed at the executive level as well, but that's where they sit. Cortez got into Politico's congressman minutes. 5/3/22 at 2:55 p.m. The Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, said Kyrsten Sinema should be primaried after her response to the draft Supreme Court opinion on abortion. Do it! Take her from the left. Primary from the left in Arizona. Do it. The Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, made her strongest comment to date in favor of a primary challenge to centrist. No, she's not a centrist. Kyrsten Sinema, after the Arizona Democrat, again ruled out changes to the Senate's filibuster rules. That was despite Politico's reporting in a draft Supreme Court opinion potentially overturning federal abortion protections. Reading off of this, Sahil Kapoor says, Sinema on SCOTUS a row. I thought, throughout my time in Congress, I've always supported women's access to health care. I'm a co-sponsor of the Women's Health Protection Act, and I'll continue working with anyone to protect women's ability to make decisions about their futures. Oh, she's a damn dirty centrist. Cortez quote tweets this saying, "We could protect Roe tomorrow, Papi, but Cinema refuses to act in the filibuster. Until that changes, she can take a seat about talking about women's access to healthcare. Hold everyone contributing to this disaster accountable, GOP and Dem obstructionists included. She should be primaried, okay, Papi?" So, there's that. Alright, almost done with this topic, and then we'll see if we can squeeze a couple more things in before we head out of here for the day. But I'm not real certain that's going to happen. Superstar singer says she got an abortion while on tour, calls it easy, and says everyone deserves access following Roe leak. From Katie Jerkovich. Superstar Phoebe Bridgers told followers she recently got an abortion while on tour, calling it easy, and saying everyone deserves access in response to the leaked draft from the Supreme Court indicating Roe v. Wade decision could be overturned. The 27-year-old singer posted on her Instagram stories and Twitter Tuesday, sharing what she experienced in October when she got an abortion pill after walking into Planned Parenthood. You're a 4-time Grammy nominee and you had to go to Planned Parenthood to get your abortion? Taking resources away from poor women who can't afford it, as you guys like to say? I had an abortion in October of last year while I was on tour. I went to Planned Parenthood. They gave me the abortion pill. It was easy. Everyone deserves that kind of access. Here's a big list of places you can donate to right now. Once again, proving the fact that private charity beats the shit out of the government 10 times out of 10. The Moonsong hitmaker was at the 2022 Met Gala in New York City Monday when reports surfaced of the leaked draft. She attended the annual event with her boyfriend, Paul Mescal. The outlet noted Bridgers and Mescal have been romantically linked since 2020, and the two made things Instagram official in December of 2021. I don't even know who this person is, just so you know. I have zero idea who this person is. I've never heard this name before. From The Hill, Harris says women's rights are under attack in forceful speech. No video of the speech, but forceful speech nonetheless. Vice President Harris assailed Republicans seeking to restrict access to abortion and declared women's rights under attack during a forceful speech at an Emily's List conference Tuesday evening. Speaking just 24 hours after a draft opinion leaked suggesting the Supreme Court is poised to overturn the landmark ruling, Harris issued a call to voters to elect more pro-abortion rights Democrats to Congress and push back against efforts to restrict access to the procedure. Roe v. Wade, in its power, has protected a woman's right, her right to make decisions about her own body for nearly half a century, Harris told the crowd at a hotel in downtown Washington, D.C. If the court overturns Roe v. Wade, it'll be a direct assault on freedom and the fundamental right to self-determination to which all Americans are entitled. Those Republican leaders, I'm speaking. Those Republican leaders who are trying to weaponize the use of a law against women, how dare they? How dare they tell a woman that she can and cannot do with her own body? How dare they? How dare they try to stop her from determining her own future? How dare they try to deny women their rights and their freedoms? So that is the speech. From The Blaze. Hookup culture will be absolutely decimated if SCOTUS tosses abortion, TikTok user warns in viral clip. In the wake of a leaked draft decision from the U.S. Supreme Court that would overturn Roe v. Wade, its 1973 ruling that made abortion legal across America, a TikTok user sent a now viral video that hookup culture would be destroyed if abortion is no longer federally protected. Your terms are acceptable. In case you're a man who doesn't care about Roe v. Wade, just know that if abortion gets banned, hookup culture will be absolutely decimated. Bridget Gwynn wrote in a text accompanying her Monday night TikTok video, according to the Daily Dot. Hookup culture is a synonym for casual sex and one-night stands, the outlet said. What woman would have mediocre sex with a drunk rando if he could potentially father her child? She added in the clip, which as of Tuesday afternoon boasted over 930,000 views. Oh, fuck off. Gwynn added the caption that she's addressing all pro-life men who love Plan B, also known as the morning after pill, that helps prevent pregnancies after sex. You know, again, I am not one to tell people to be chaste based on my lifestyle, but I've never had to depend on the morning after pill. Ever. Let's watch the video. And by the way, I'm probably going to drop this over in one of the Discord servers I like and just see what the outrage is off of that. Let's listen.
I'm off the motherfucking drugs. I be tripping if a motherfucker run up on.
Alright, and it says, in case you're a man who doesn't care about Roe v. Wade, just know that abortion gets banned. Hookup culture will be absolutely decimated. What woman would have mediocre sex with a drunk rando if he could potentially father their child? Some commenters on Gwynn's clip said a SCOTUS abortion strike down would prod them towards a second look at their sexual practices. The Daily Dot said, I'm entering my celibacy era, one commenter said, according to the outlet. Deleting all dating apps as we speak, another user added, the Daily Dot said. She's not, but I already told my sneaky link no more meetups because of fears of pregnancy, another commenter shared, according to the outlet. Others lamented other potential outcomes if abortion goes down. I'm scared that sexual assault numbers are going to rise because we know how well no can be tolerated, one commenter wrote, the Daily Dot said. Pregnancy rates are going to drop while death rates are going to rise, another user commented, according to the outlet. Another commenter said abstinence is key will be pushed, which leads to lack of church-state separation, the Daily Dot reported. They're going to come for Plan B next, another user noted, according to the outlet. Has anybody said a word about Plan B? Not that you should be relying on that anyway. But this is another situation of your terms are acceptable. And the last one. Before we head out of this topic and possibly grab a little bit more of what we had here, but again, hopefully tomorrow isn't quite as historic as today is because there's still a lot to go over. But if we want to talk just a bit about hyperbole and all this thing, Fox News reports Dem Rep Swalwell claims Republicans want to ban interracial marriage. Which I had the tweet up, but I did take it back down after knowing that this article was here. But yes, he actually tweeted that out. Eric Swalwell of California claimed Tuesday that the Republican Party was seeking to ban interracial marriage. The congressman made the statement after the Supreme Court draft opinion showed an intention to outlaw Roe v. Wade. If the decision does go through, it will be thanks in large part to 3 judges appointed by former President Trump. Swalwell said Republicans would not be content banning abortion and also want to ban marriage between people of different races. These Republicans won't stop with banning abortion. They want to ban interracial marriage. Do you want to save that? Swalwell wrote. Well, you should probably vote. Should Roe v. Wade be overturned, abortions would be left for the states to decide. Abortion would not be banned in the U.S., but individual states would be free to legislate the issue according to their own preference. Many red states have already have abortion laws on record that would go into effect immediately after a reversal of Roe v. Wade. However, until an official opinion is signed and released by the court, Roe remains the law of the land. Drafts circulate and changes, as do votes. Swalwell's claim is most likely a response to Mike Braun, who was interviewed in the role on the role of the courts in the U.S. Braun was asked if the Supreme Court cases that establish certain civil rights would be better left to the state level. Yes, if you're not wanting the Supreme Court to weigh in on issues like that, you are not going to be able to have your cake and eat it too, Braun said. Braun later apologized, saying that he misunderstood the question. Earlier, during a virtual press conference, I misunderstood a line of questioning that ended up being about interracial marriage, Braun wrote. Let me be clear on the issue. There's no question in the Constitution prohibits discrimination of any kind based on race. That is not something that's even up for debate, and I condemn racism in any form, at all levels, and by any states, entities, or individuals. Swalwell's just pissed because he's afraid that he might lose his ability to have bang bang with fang fang. So, there you go. What's really happening here? I don't know. What it sounds like to me is the fact that it really does sound like we're trying to push and move towards a situation where Democrats couldn't fix the economy. They couldn't forgive student loans. Biden's already said no, he's not going to do that. They couldn't tax the rich out of everything and tax them out of existence. So now they have to have something to unite their party that was very, very much dividing in a hurry. And get everybody out to the midterms, otherwise they knew that they were going to lose their power. I do think this was a Democrat leak. All right, let's grab the Pfizer stuff. At the same time that this was all happening, Pfizer cuts 2022 earnings outlook despite strong first quarter COVID vaccine and antiviral sales. Basically telling you that they profited majorly off the vaccine. There's supposedly a data dump that's coming out too that's, telling us that that this was this vaccine is actually horrible for people, but nobody's going to see it because of the Roe versus Wade stuff. Pfizer on Tuesday cut its 2022 earnings guidance despite reporting first quarter results that beat on the top and bottom lines due to strong COVID vaccine and antiviral sales. That stuff that was paid by the federal government. The pharmaceutical giant now expects earnings shares of $6.25 to $6.45 for the year, down from the previous outlook of $6.35 to $6.55 per share. Pfizer attributed its lower earnings guidance to research and development costs as well as foreign exchange as the US dollar strengthened against other currencies. However, the company is still projecting $98 billion to $102 billion in total sales for 2022. Pfizer stock rose nearly 2% in afternoon trading. The company's first quarter revenue grew 77% to more than $25 billion compared to the same period last year, driven by $13.2 billion in COVID vaccine sales at the quarter and $1.5 billion in sales of its oral antiviral treatment Paxlovid. Pfizer booked a net income of $7.8 billion, a 61% increase over the first quarter of 2021. Adjusted first quarter earnings grew 72% to $162 per share compared with the same period last year. TLDR, Pfizer just got rich off the US government and your taxpayer dollars. From The Guardian, Pfizer accused of COVID profiteering as first quarter sales hit $26 billion. From Julia Colloway, Pfizer's made nearly 26 billion US dollars, or 21 billion pounds, in revenue in the first 3 months of the year, the bulk from its COVID vaccine, a new pill to treat the virus, prompting press accusations of pandemic profiteering. COVID vaccines have saved many lives around the world and relieved the pressure on the health systems, but Pfizer has faced criticism over its vaccine pricing and its refusal to weigh patient protection to enable others to make the jab. Last week, 35 campaigners from Global Justice Now, ACT UP London, Just Treatment and Stop AIDS protested against what they call pandemic profiteering and delivered wheelbarrows full of fake money to Pfizer's UK headquarters in Surrey, one day after the company's annual shareholder meeting. Again, something I've been saying right from the beginning. Right from the start of this, when they started pumping out the vaccine and saying, you have to take it and we're going to try to make it mandatory. And then when we can't make it mandatory, we're going to tell all our followers to tell you it was never mandatory. You always had the option. I want to see the invoice. What the federal government paid to Pfizer. Now we're starting to get the numbers. But I've told you from the beginning, this is a profiteering move. These vaccines are not free. Somebody is paying for these vaccines. And now we have a hard number that goes with it. I'll skip that one because we read about that already. Let's look into the primaries. From our neighbors in Ohio and Indiana who had their primaries last night. Election results, winners and losers from Ohio and Indiana. From WLWT Digital staff. From Ohio governor to the highly contested Ohio U.S. Senate seat, here are how the races have shaped up in Ohio and Indiana. Looks like Whaley is going to be the Democrat coming in for Ohio governor to take DeWine. And DeWine is going to take it for the Republican side. J.D. Vance, the Trump-backed Republican, is going to be the primary winner for the Republican side, and Tim Ryan is going to be the Democrat by far. He actually took that one, so looks like there's some unity on their party over there. We'll hold off on the congressional seats. I'll actually take some time and look into some of this, but I know the Senate one and the governor ones were the big ones that were being watched right now. So DeWine and J.D. Vance on the Republican side, and then Tim Ryan will be running against Vance for the Ohio Senate seat. So we'll see what happens with that. Journalists from multiple news outlets test positive after the White House Correspondents' Dinner. From Oliver Darcy. Ha! 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 Trevor Noah joked about the events becoming a super spreader, and now the cases are rolling in. The annual White House Correspondents' Dinner, along with festivities held in the days before and after it, have led to the inevitable spread of the pinko fucking pox. In the days since the White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend, reporters and staffers from CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Politico, and other participating news organizations have tested positive for the virus. Most notably, ABC's John Carl, who shook hands with President Biden, and who sat next to Kim Kardashian, has fallen ill, as Politico's Maxwell Tanney first reported. There's no exact data to indicate precisely how many people have caught the virus from the weekend, but anecdotally speaking, much of Tuesday afternoon seemed to consist of attendees trading text messages and emails about colleagues and friends and people who they have seen who have tested positive, and there's almost certainly going to continue in the days ahead. It's only Trump rallies that are super spreader events. Now, I'm going to come off and say what we're going to see off of this. Again, coming into the midterms is another push and a renewed push for mail-in voting. Because, hey, every time we have people gather, we get another super spreader event. I don't think this was done by accident. I really don't. Is the president going to get it? Probably, but we're not going to hear about it. He'll just go back to Delaware for a couple of weeks and have his bread muffin and be ignored by the media until he comes back. Here's one that we tried to read yesterday, but it wouldn't work because the Blaze was having problems yesterday. Not every program has to be for everybody. AOC responds to a question about how student debt forgiveness would benefit those who have already paid off their loans. Come on. In response to a question about how student debt cancellation would benefit people who already paid off their loans, the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez D-Twitch suggested that while individuals who have already paid down their student debt would not benefit from debt cancellation, they might benefit from another program. It all comes around, she says. Beck, we gotta do something about the ads on your site. We really do. I said it before and I'll say it again, not every program has to be for everybody. People with apartments pay for first-time homeowner benefits. Young people pay for Medicare for our seniors. People who take public transit pay for car infrastructure. Maybe student loan forgiveness doesn't have to affect everybody. Well, that's actually equal protection under the law, so yeah, they do. Beck, this is starting to become a problem. Some more Supreme Court news. And I think with that, I think we'll do this one. We'll do this one from the street and we'll head out of here for the day. Supreme Court unanimously rules Boston violated groups' rights by refusing to fly a Christian flag. From Ron Blitzer over at Fox News. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that a program of the City of Boston that allows outside groups to fly flags at City Hall must permit the flying of a flag with a cross that it can't refer to as a Christian flag. The question before the court was whether flying the flag as part of a government program was considered government speech if the flag belonged to a private organization. In this case, Camp Constitution, the Supreme Court ruled that it is not. We conclude that, on balance, Boston did not make the raising and flying of private groups' flags a form of government speech. Justice Stephen Breyer wrote in the court's opinion, stating that as a result, the city improperly violated Camp Constitution's free speech rights. Boston argued that flying the flag was government speech because it was on the city's flagpole. Indeed, the pole is normally used to fly the flag of Boston when it's not used for the program. During oral arguments, the city's attorney, Douglas Harry Hallward Dremier, noted at the city's website that we commemorate flags of many countries and our goal is to foster diversity, which would indicate that it's the city's decision to fly the flags in order to promote its own message. Attorney Matthew Staver, representing Shurtleff, argued the oral arguments that the city's policy specifically used the phrase public forum, which would indicate that the flags would be an expression of the private speech of the group that applied. So, good on a win for that. And I'm sure that at some point, at some of this, somebody came in here and said, hey, I bet you we can get them to fly the Christian flag and violate separation of church and state. But really, realistically, it is the right decision. If they are making this into a public forum, then it's not government speech. It's not like Boston saying, well, we prefer Namibia over Germany or something like that, by flying one flag over the other. So it's a public forum and they want to do that and they file the proper paperwork, which unfortunately they have to do because it's a government entity, then yes, they should be allowed. And the last one we'll grab from the street. Billionaire Jeff Bezos lost $20.5 billion in 24 hours. From Luke Olinga. Jeff Bezos is $20.5 billion poorer. The second richest man in the world lost this huge sum in 24 hours. To be more precise, the big loss happened during the April 29th stock market session. Do not worry, however, because the entrepreneur still has a net worth of $148 billion as of April 30th. According to Bloomberg Billionaire Index, Bezos is now over $100 billion away from Elon Musk, the world's richest man. His place as a silver medalist is now threatened by the French businessman Bernard Arnault, the CEO of the luxury group LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany, Hennessy, etc. Arnault's fortune is estimated at $136 billion. Bill Gates comes in fourth place with a fortune of $125 billion. With the exception of Arnault, all the members of the top 10 of this ranking of the biggest fortunes on the planet lost money on April 29th, which was a black day on Wall Street. It must be said that the 6 of the 10 richest people in the world are in tech, apart from Arnault. The other non-techs are Warren Buffett, Indian billionaires Gautam Adani, and Mukesh Ambani. Bezos' wealth is primarily tied to his 9.81% stake in Amazon as of March 2nd, according to KTZed. Amazon said on April 28th that it recorded a loss of $3.8 billion during the past quarter, or $7.56 a share, compared with a profit of $8.1 billion a year ago, or a profit of $15.79 per share. And I do see, because revenues rose 7% from last year, the slowest year-on-year growth for more than a decade, Amazon says it sees its operating income between $1 billion, minus $1 billion, to plus $3 billion on revenues in the range of $116 billion to $121 billion, compared to a Refinitiv forecast of around $125 billion for the current quarter. The pandemic and subsequent war in Ukraine have brought unusual growth and challenges, said CEO Andy Jassy. Today, we're no longer chasing physical or staffing capacity. Our teams are squarely focused on improving productivity and cost efficiencies throughout our fulfillment network. We know how to do this and have done it before. So, less bathroom breaks for you. And I'm sure a lot of the other stock that's going on, because tech has been taking a beating lately, is really affecting a lot of these people. But hey, if you're really so concerned about it, go out and buy a social media company. Or go feed the hungry. Because apparently that's something you're supposed to be doing if you have a whole bunch of money. Alright. Well, we're done here, I think. So, usually on a Wednesday, I do something that restores my faith in humanity, something that really makes me feel better about it, or something that I'm thankful for. It is so hard right now to do something like that. With the last 48 hours of news, and the fact that everybody has lost their ever-loving motherfucking mind. I will say, this didn't affect me, and I didn't actually go there, but I do want to say congratulations to my sister for raising a very, very good fundraiser for a friend of theirs. I'm not going to say, obviously, because this will be self-dox if I do that, and doxing my sister as well, but, it is still nice to see small-town America where people come back out together and do something like this and make things happen and come together and work with that. So I'm happy to see that, but I'm having a really hard time having my faith in humanity restored right now, given what we've seen over the last 48 hours. It's been a mess. It has been an absolute mess. So we'll be back here tomorrow with Thing I Like and Thing That I Hate, because that'll still go, and I'll still be able to find, well, I'm sure I'll be able to find a lot of stuff that I hate. But it's just, right now, my faith in humanity is shattered. And it's going to take a lot to bring that back up. And I'll admit that these last 48 hours have really blackpilled me. A lot. In a way that I'm not used to being blackpilled. So, we'll see what happens with that. Thanks everybody who came out. Let's throw up some outro music and let's head out of here for the day. So, thanks everybody who came out into this incredibly black-pilling episode of Contemporary. Thanks for coming out, chatting, talking about what you guys feel. Thanks to Tom again from yesterday, who is also whispering at my users because he doesn't believe what it is they had to say. I kind of hope that he would have shown back up here, but, you know, it is what it is. We'll be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary, more news headlines. I'm sure we'll be talking more about protests and what's happening on the abortion front, because I'm sure they're not going to let us forget that up until, I'd say about Election Day. So prepare for 6 months of this bullshit. But other than that, we'll head out of here. We'll see you here tomorrow for more Contemporary. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going rating, and otherwise we'll be back. We'll see you next time. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.